God, my husband is dead. How do I survive now?
Amina and Kwame were the kind of couple that made people believe in love. Married for 3 years, they lived simply in their village, but they were rich in happiness. Kwame worked hard on his family's farm, and Amina sold vegetables in the local market. Their joy knew no bounds when Amina became pregnant with their first child. Kwame would place his hand on her growing belly every night and whisper prayers of thanksgiving. "Our son will be blessed," he would say with certainty, though they didn't yet know if it was a boy or a girl. But life, as we know, can change in a heartbeat. When Amina was 8 months pregnant, Kwame fell ill with a sudden fever. The village healer tried everything, but within 5 days, Kwame passed away, leaving Amina devastated and alone. 2 weeks later, Amina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Kwame Jr., after his father. But as she held her newborn son, the reality of her situation crashed down upon her. She was a widow with no income, no support, and a child depending entirely on her. The months that followed were the hardest of Amina's life. Kwame's family, who had once welcomed her warmly, now saw her as a burden. Some even whispered that she had brought bad luck. With no help from them, Amina had to find a way to survive on her own. She returned to selling vegetables in the market, but now with a baby strapped to her back. Little Kwame would cry from hunger, and Amina's heart would break because some days she barely had enough to feed herself, let alone produce milk for her son. There were nights when she sat in her small hut, tears streaming down her face, wondering how she would make it through another day. The weight of loneliness, poverty, and responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like stones. But Amina refused to give up. She would look at her baby's innocent face and find strength she didn't know she had. "Your father wanted you to live a good life," she would whisper to him, "and I will make sure you do, even if it costs me everything." The village women pitied her. Some helped when they could, sharing a cup of rice or watching the baby while Amina worked. But pity doesn't pay bills or fill empty stomachs. Amina's situation seemed hopeless until one day everything changed. One afternoon, a woman Amina hadn't seen in years appeared at the market. It was Grace, Kwame's older sister, who had moved to the city many years ago. When Grace saw Amina's condition, thin, exhausted, with worn clothes and a baby on her back, she was heartbroken. "My brother's wife should not be suffering like this," Grace said, tears in her eyes. Grace had traveled back to the village for a family matter and had only just learned of her brother's death and Amina's struggles. She made a decision right there in the market. "Pack your things," Grace told Amina. "You and the baby are coming with me to the city." Amina could hardly believe it. "But sister, I have nothing to offer you. I cannot pay rent or—" Grace held up her hand. "You are family. My brother loved you, and this is his son. That is all that matters. I have a small room you can stay in while you get back on your feet." Within a week, Amina and baby Kwame were on a bus headed to the city. As the village disappeared behind them, Amina felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. Life in the city was not easy, but it was different. Grace gave Amina and the baby a small room in her quarters. It wasn't much, but it was safe and it was theirs. Grace worked as a cleaner at a hotel, and she helped Amina find work at the same place, washing dishes in the kitchen. The pay was small, but it was regular. For the first time since Kwame's death, Amina could feed her son without worry. But Amina wanted more than just survival. She wanted to build a future for her child. During her breaks at the hotel, Amina noticed how the cooks prepared food. She watched carefully, asked questions, and learned. Amina had always been good at cooking, and soon she began practicing new recipes at home. One day, she prepared a special meal for Grace, jollof rice with perfectly seasoned chicken and vegetables. Grace was amazed. "This tastes like restaurant food," she exclaimed. That comment planted a seed in Amina's mind. She started cooking small portions of food and selling them to her neighbors in the compound. Word spread quickly. "Have you tried that widow's food? It's delicious." People would line up at her door each evening. Within 6 months, Amina saved enough money to buy a small food cart. She positioned it near a busy bus stop and sold breakfast and lunch to workers. Her food was so good that customers became regulars, and some even began placing orders in advance. Amina's business grew steadily. She hired a helper, then 2. After 2 years, she opened a small restaurant. By the time little Kwame turned 5, Amina owned 3 successful food spots across the city. She was no longer the struggling widow from the village. She was a respected businesswoman, a loving mother, and an inspiration to everyone who knew her story. Today, Amina's son Kwame Jr. is a bright young man in school, and Amina continues to expand her business. She never forgot where she came from, and she regularly sends support back to the village to help other widows and struggling families. When people ask her how she did it, Amina always says the same thing. "I didn't do it alone. God gave me strength when I had none. My sister Grace gave me opportunity when I had nothing, and I gave myself permission to keep trying, even when everything seemed impossible." So what can we learn from Amina's story? First, your current situation is not your final destination. Amina went from a desperate widow to a successful businesswoman because she refused to accept defeat. Second, sometimes help comes from unexpected places. Grace's kindness changed everything. Never be too proud to accept help when it's offered with a pure heart. Third, use what you have. Amina didn't have money or education, but she had skill in cooking. She turned that talent into a thriving business. And finally, remember that difficult times are often preparing us for greater blessings. Amina's struggle taught her resilience, humility, and compassion, qualities that made her not just wealthy, but wise. If you're going through a hard time right now, remember Amina's story. Your breakthrough may be closer than you think. Keep faith, keep working, and keep believing. If this story inspired you, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring African stories. What lesson touched you most from Amina's story? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, remember, no matter how dark the night, joy comes in the morning. God bless you all.